I feel like the American people are told by the media writ large, like, and this is true in the case of abortion. I watched Kamala Harris deal with this weekend when we talk about the Dems' extreme position, is that the media loves to inject themselves to make sure that they defend the Democratic's position. And you're right, Tim, over and over again, they say, without evidence. I mean, Grace, there is evidence. I mean, I think that's the question that I want to ask, though. The thing that's interesting is impeachment's always been used generally. I mean, except for Trump. Trump's second impeachment changed the Rubicon, right? They were impeaching a guy who was no longer in office. And the whole point of impeachment is to remove someone from office. Republicans protested and said this is ridiculous. But prior to that, with Clinton, even the threat of it to Nixon was based on actions that they had taken in office. Everything that they're going after on Joe Biden is something that occurred when he was vice president or prior, right? And so the question I have is this. The Democrats changed the Rubicon when it came to how they went after Trump. And like I said, it was going after him for what happened, other people's actions, number one. Number two, when he was out of office. And they're dealing with the consequences of this because this is the point. But are Republicans now further changing it by saying we're going to go after you for actions that didn't occur while you were president of the United States, but occurred from you before that?
Yeah. That's an interesting point. And that is, it's not stuff he did as president, but a lot of it's what he did as vice president. You can't impeach him from the vice presidency at this point.
But that's the point, right, Grace?
But I think some of the things, if what they're alleging proves to be true, I think that it's equally as dangerous now if he forged these relationships based off influence peddling with foreign leaders and with corrupt regimes. And if all of this tangled web is true, then I think the fact that he's president and he's still interacting with a lot of these same leaders is scary, and it still holds true. But I know what you're saying.
But I mean,
to
what you're saying, though, I think I can make a case that says, all of these things may have happened in the past, but you denied them as president. You said, I was never involved. I didn't do that. As president, you did say this. I mean, Clinton lied under oath. If Biden can be seen as, well, you lied to the American people about your business dealings, and to your point, Grace, a lot of those relationships still exist today. So the actions that you're taking with respect to Ukraine or China may be predicated on payments or influence peddling that existed, while you were vice president.
Yeah, and also there's always conversations about what these high-powered officials are doing with their government emails and like how that's being used. And I know that it happens, I'm sure there's a statute of limitations, but they do have these conversations years later about you weren't supposed to be sending that from there. He's sending from 3 different pseudonyms emails where he's CCing his son, and his son has them on this laptop that's also full of sexually explicit images and him with a pipe in a crack pipe in a bathtub. That has to come into play too, because even if it's in the past, it's still jeopardizing American security if all of these things are true, which I think most of them are.
So Tim, go ahead.
I was just going to say if you look at the Biden scandal plate, right? The news media, Robert Hur. Most people don't even know who that guy is. He's the special counsel that's supposed to be investigating Biden's, classified documents in his garage that he removed from a SCIF. You don't hear about that. They appoint a guy and they promptly disappear. When we are now back in another one of those periods, we did have this brief outbreak of David Weiss saying he was going to indict Hunter Biden soon. But we go for 2 months without them saying the words David Weiss. I mean, so whatever peril Biden's in from scandals, they try to bury. And this is, look, the media bias game since the 80s when I've been involved, but obviously since Watergate, is the news media uses scandals to try to destroy the Republicans, either remove them from power or just make them lose elections. That's just the way they are. And then when the Democrats are in power, they do the exact opposite. They scream no evidence and pretend that nothing's going on.
So let me ask, Grace, do you want to say something?
I just want to say one other thing, and that's when you look at the polls, and there's been a bunch of different ones lately about what people associate Joe Biden with. It is interesting how corruption is way further down on the list than the fact that he's old and he's out of it. And I guess, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it just depresses me that it's not enough. Like just even in 2020, that looking at Joe Biden and his capabilities, his cognitive capabilities right now, that's not enough for people when they go to vote, that we need to.
But
and I think we should.
But this gets back to like kind of it's tangential to what I was saying, which is I think his own party, when you look at their preference now, everybody partisan wise agrees that he's too old, right? They're concerned about it. What is it? 2/3 of his own party now wants him. And my point is, when it comes to impeachment, it's the old axiom that don't get in the way of somebody who's digging their own grave. And I feel like right now, you look at the poll that came out last week, everybody's beating Joe Biden. And if we give them a reason to unify around anything but this age and the incompetence and the policies that aren't working, then that's our fault. We've given them the lifeline that they're desperate to talk about anything, because every Democrat right now, the one thing that they do get asked about is Joe Biden's age and his cognitive ability and whether or not he's up to the job. And all of a sudden, we're about to allow them to go, oh, no, let's talk about whether he should be impeached or not, which they can all say, absolutely not. There's no evidence. Republicans made this up. And we just literally gave them a new shiny nickel to point everybody to.
Well, the same argument can be made about the 4 indictments of Trump. You know,
And
morning, Joe.
But look at you just made the case for me, Tim, because every time Trump gets indicted, his poll numbers go up. And the point is, when you ask even the most ardent Trump people, Trump haters, they'll say, oh, that Manhattan one, that was ridiculously political. The Florida one, blah, blah. My point is, people are looking at that and talking about the weaponization of the judicial system and how Democrats are using it to go after a political opponent. And Trump's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're about to go, hey, let's use that exact same tactic and go after them.
Well, I think their theory is, their theory behind all these indictments of Trump is, one, just their own base who's always wanted Trump to be removed. They have so much ardor to get him into jail, whatever it works. But I think that, yes, it solidified him among Republicans because they have a sympathy about this weaponization. But I think they also consider that this is something that's gonna harm Trump with independent voters.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure you click the link below to find out more, or you can go to SeanSpicerShow.com to stay up to date on all my content.